All right, so once you're here, we can go ahead and open up our DSSpy Forge workshop folder. And we're just gonna then want to make sure on the top right where it says select kernel, go ahead and click that. Click Python environments and select the same SWIMS environment that we were working in yesterday. The environment SWIMS. And once you got to this point, you should just be able to then go ahead and run this first cell here, which has these pip installs. And so this might take 5 minutes. So we just wanted everyone to run this command beforehand, so that when we get to this point, everyone's all set up with that. Is there anyone who doesn't have the downloading in process? Go ahead and hold your hand if you need help or you need more time. Okay, got it.
I was excited yesterday. Eric's chart showed all the Python tools, and PyTorch was in there, and all kinds of things. Beautiful soup. Lots of funky names, but they're good stuff.
I'm going to let everyone else, continue the downloading process, but I think we can sort of move into the presentation now.
Yeah, look at that PowerPoint.
Yeah, exactly. That's the one.
Cool.
Here, and then go back.
Probably show up right there. Probably.
Yeah.
You click harder.
Yeah, you might have to click again to open that.
Yeah.
Oh, there
I'm probably
it
gonna get
is.
it 3 times now. Oh, look, I got it 3 times.
Oh,
Oh, yeah. So for anyone who don't know, Torch is just a library for running machine learning AI models on data within Python. So we're going to do a quick little fun demo within that workshop of, reading data in from a DSS file, configuring it into the right, shape and formats, then feed into a neural network, which then we're going to get some results with that we can play with. And you can just see how that flows. And the idea is that, really we're trying to just leverage Python and the existing packages that are out in the ecosystem. So to instill to you that with Python, really you can do whatever you want. And this is just like one cool example of a tool that, you might use.
I might just download that file. This isn't my computer. Let me tell a quick story about where did this DSS Python thing come from? A couple of years ago, we're in a DSS view class, and I had 2 people independently come up to me and say, Karl, we want to be doing Python with real, the Python 3, not the Python 2 that's the Python. Tyler is one of those. He goes, Karl, this is crazy. You guys don't have it, basically. And we already knew we needed that. And so between Tyler and another guy named Yori Carter, who's up in Portland, somewhere up in Portland area up there, that kind of ignited us. And then we got Oskar, and you can tell, hope you can tell he's a fresh computer scientist that really knows this stuff. And so we were lucky to get him, and so then that actually made it happen. Oskar could actually make it go, and so now we actually have a disclaimer too. This is new. It's not You know, those version numbers don't have a 1 in the front. They're like point something. And even Eric yesterday, I'll admit, if you look close, his version wasn't a 1 yet on this CWMS Python either. So so it will have to change a little bit over time, but we've got a good start for fun stuff. And we're going to start with a little PowerPoint, talk about it. Then we're going to have some little workshops. And some of them might be multiple choice. Oscar's making it a challenge. And so that PyTorch thing is, it's just to get you ready for later when we have a workshop. But we're going to start off with, just basic bread and butter DSS. Get your data from SWIM to DSS.
Let's get right into it. So I think it's just the introduction. We go straight to the next slide here. All right. So the question we want to be asking ourselves is, what was that?
Getting a hot mic somewhere else.
I'll just mute somebody. Or is that mute myself?
Yep, you can go ahead. Don't worry about it.
All right, perfect. All right, what is DSS Python? So really, in the back end, we still have DSS, and this is something that we're all using. So all DSS Python is a package within Python and a library that allows us to be accessing these DSS files and basically reading and writing data from them. It's just giving us an interface to then store the data within Python objects that then we can use, manipulate it to whatever scripting or needs that we might need. Let you take the next slide.
Okay. Anyhow, I might even ask a question, who needs DSS still? But in the cloud, I bet there'll be scenarios where maybe you don't, but I think there's still DSS for a lot of, especially modeling and getting things done day to day. And so we've started simple with this library just to support like the basics, time series and paired data is our focus. And then over time, we're bringing in other things. We brought in gridded data too for Jeff. So we can have that as well.
And why do we have it? And we touched on this a bit beforehand, but really it's just to give you all the ability to use any tools that you want to. This is a rapidly evolving field and everyone has their own preferences. And we just want to be able to give the resources for you to use the tools you want and to work the way you want to. Why do we have it again? It's to make your job easier. It's to use all these existing powerful graphics and computing engines that are out there. So how do we set it up? We want to make it easy for everyone. I think we all know, it's just a quick, easy pip install away. Currently, our repository is being hosted on PyPy's test repository. So, following this URL, you can then get access to HEC DSS or DSSpy. And from there, it's easy as, importing our DSS time series object, having the path for the specific DSS entry that we want to make within the file. And here's just a quick example of us generating a time series from scratch of just, a simple range from, 0 to 14. And, you set the start date time using simple, Python datetime objects, and you apply the path. And then this instantiates a DSS object, which is kind of like our middleware in order to like store all the information before it's being put into our DSS file.
And I'll just mention on this, how you can just say pip install. Eric did that yesterday too. So just do pip install, you get it. And that just basically means it's installed in the library up in the cloud. So Oskar did the same thing for this. You just say pip install, And the really cool thing about it is like you do that on your Solaris G7 for the SWIM file, it'll work. Now this one won't actually work on Solaris yet, I don't think. We'd have to tweak it, but right, it will work on Linux and Windows. So we would have to tweak it, but it actually, because it has to do that, go down deep into the DSS libraries to actually work. But that pip thing's pretty cool because it's just, you don't need to call IT and say, please install this thing. You just say pip install and you're good to go.
Yeah, so really, we don't want to bore you, so we're just trying to get you through the flow of using OpenDCS. So this is going to be, really practical. So like the step-by-steps of like what the everyday, working with DSSpy is going to look like. So obviously, first steps of, opening any DSS file, we got to get the file path, pretty simple. We're just going to copy the path into our console. And from here, it's as easy as, once we set the path variable, purely just running DSS with the path inside of it, now opens up our DSS file into this DSS object.
And whenever you do an open, what do you need to do when you're done? Close. That's very important, yeah.
Yeah. So
there it is.
From here, after you've opened up your DSS file, most of you want to actually then see the DSS, entries within it. So we're going to be running then the get catalog function. And if we print out, catalog.items at the 0th entry, this is just going to get your first path or first entry within your DSS file. And if we apply this path to a string to get them the string primitive of our path variable, we can then call dss.get, which then gets our time series object. This is just a quick little example of that.
And that get, you might be familiar, I'm going to use get before with the Jython. So we're trying to keep it somewhat similar pattern so you can move from Jython pretty easy.
So here's a basic representation of our regular time series. It's just an array of times, a NumPy array of values, a quality bits array, a units data type, then the data type, an interval, a start date, and the ID or the path within the DSS file for your specific entry.
There's a plot there. That's cool.
And same for paired data. So within paired data, we now have values and ordinance that each have their own respective types and units for the independent variables. And so now, once we've got our data using the get method, which all you have to do, again, it's super simple for everyone. We just wanted to make it, you put the path name of the file type, or sorry, put the path of the file entry within DSS to get it. Once you have your data, it's as simple as doing dss.put, and with your object that's being returned, or with the object that you've created. And that will then store it within our DSS file, which we then close.
Thanks for closing the file. That's
Yes.
yeah, that's important.
And obviously there's a lot more to it than that. We want to sort of fly through it so you can actually get into the meat of it, of programming it yourselves. So I feel like that's where we're really going to learn how to use it, experimenting. So we just wanted to, put some more resources here at the end. So specifically, if you really want to understand how the code's working, we recommend you all to go look at our GitHub where we have the code open source for everyone to look at, write issues, recommendations, pull requests, everything. We're happy to see it all, as well as Karl has a class that you'd want to.
Yeah, you're all invited to DSS View prospect class coming up in March. So. We're not sold out yet.
I was saying, yeah, our intention was to fly through that fast on purpose. I know that you're pretty confused and you probably didn't get half of it. But remember, this PowerPoint is still up within that file section for the workshop. And so you can follow some of the code snippets that we have in there to help you complete the workshop that we have, as well as me and Karl will be walking around to help you all. We really recommend you all at this point to get into groups of 2 or 3 to try to collaborate, to try to complete the workshop together. And also, can I get a hands? Did everyone's install finish correctly? Anyone have any problems? Okay, good. No problems. That all look like thumbs up to me. So, all right. So to complete the workshop, remember you have the PowerPoint of those code snippets. Also, you have access to go look at our GitHub README and actually the direct source code. So I'm actually going to release you all now to get into Teams, and me and Karl are going to be walking around to help you guys sort of complete this little challenge that we have for you.
And we have actually more than one choice, and I could walk through one, or do we want to?
Oh yes, sorry, actually, yeah.
I might actually walk through one. We'll walk through one that kind of builds on yesterday, and then you'll get, it's like a multiple choice, right? You get to pick which one.
Yeah.
Choose your own adventure.
If you want, just do machine learning.
Yeah.
Do machine learning.
For the matplotlib, it's actually fully completed for you, so you can look through it and experiment and see how you can use the matplotlib to graph some functions. But if you're trying to do a challenge yourself and do a lot of coding, then I would recommend looking at the PyTorch workshop. So I don't know if you want to pull up that example
Sure.
now.
Sure. And basically just reiterate, there's like these 2 choices, a couple workshops. This one. This is my kindergarten workshop here. If you want to just do CSV files, DSS, CSV. But I'll do this one now. I'll pull it up and just talk through it. Where we're basically going to read data from SWIMs, like Eric taught us yesterday, and then saving it to DSS file. Yeah.
Do we know, like you were saying earlier, do we know where these DSS files was rendered file?
So in the cloud, yeah, I think DSS files in the cloud are still. You brought up a good point that you might not need them in the cloud in some cases.
Yeah.
So like some of these scenarios we were talking about yesterday, you might just go straight from. You're stuck with Chef, you take Chef and put it into the file, into the database, and you might not even touch the DSS file. But
We do expect most of the DSS access to be on the client. The server environment, as you know, today, including in the cloud. And so you're not going to have your own operating system and file system and all that stuff to work with. So, details to be worked out on specifics on specific requirement.
Yeah. One example in the cloud right now is even Cumulus. Currently it downloads a DSS file. And so there's one example where it's currently being used. But so this is just the fun stuff, the DSS on your desktops. But I'm going to walk through this little workshop on we're going to do CDA like we were doing yesterday, but we're also going to mix in DSS. And I'm just going to run this first command. If you run, I don't know if you've installed DSS or not yet. I believe it was one of the instructions, but I'll just rerun it again. I'm going to uncomment this. Just run this whole cell. We have a chat question. Don't they have to pay extra to ask questions in the chat?
So be answering chat question. That was part of the warning for the virtual viewing that they are allowed to view. However, you are all our focus because your districts are paying for you to be here, and we're trying to make sure you get the most out of this.
But if you want to relay that question and pretend it's your own, that'd be great. So just to be safe, I'm going to run that whole cell with the install. It'll slow it down just a little bit.
Right, that's
It did it?
Yep.
So that's just including all the parts we're going to use. You'll notice this thing's kind of interest. SWIMS utility as a little piece we had to put in there. A SWIMS IDE and a DSS path are not exactly, they don't line up perfectly. So we need a little bit of tools. So some of those tools are built in to the DSS library where it makes sense, where it's DSS specific, but a SWIMS translation. So I'm going to scroll down to the next cell. These are I'm going to preach a little bit about how we like to program. And even just overall here, we're building libraries. You'll see we're making a library, SWIMSpy, DSSpy. when you're coding, build good libraries first. And here I'm gonna just make some functions first. I'm not just gonna jump in and try to do it all at once, because kindergartners like me can't do it all at once. You have to like break it down in little pieces. So I've got these functions. Read from swims. This function is pretty simple. It just does what Eric says to do, and then it returns it. And then here's another function. This one got a little bit longer. I don't like them to get much longer than that, or it'll be too much. If it fits on the screen, is my rule of thumb. If it fits on the screen, you're still legal. But if your function goes off the screen, then you need to get a permission slip, because then you won't be able to understand it yourself. At least I won't when I come back. But this one here, you know, the name of the function, it's taken a swims, one of these data things that Eric gave us yesterday, and converting that to the structure that Oskar showed us, that time series structure. And you'll see here one of our limitations, you know, it's going to give an error message if it's not a regular time series. We haven't worked out irregular time series yet. So I'm going to run that cell. Basically, all I'm doing is, you know, getting those functions in memory. Here's the next one. We saw this thing called JSON yesterday. Is how this Eric's library is given that JSON format. This one, actually, this function is going to be used to go the other way around. It looks like we wanted to have a time series and go back to swims. So we're just getting all these nice functions, and we don't have to use them. And then we get to our main program. And another good rule that, see, our main program fits on one screen too. So that's, I think that's important for me at least. We're gonna, you know, you're certainly welcome to change this to what are your favorite river gauge in swims. And it's, I'll just talk through it. First, we're gonna say the ending date. We're gonna go right now and back up 5 days, and that's our window. Office ID is SWT. Get this flow. Here's our time series ID. Call that read from swims, which I just copied Eric's stuff from yesterday and put it inside a function so it could have a name. And then we're going to convert that swims stuff that came back from CDA into a DSS friendly time series container. And then I'm going to pick a file name on your hard drive. Pick it. You might need to change this temp to a directory that you actually have on your machine. Pick it. Then this can be doesn't have to exist yet. It's just a file. So you'll probably have to change that. And then we're going to just call this function DSS. That's called a constructor. It creates it'll create the file. And then we're going to put in the time series into the file. And don't forget to close. So it read from CDA and opened a DSS file, and it probably did something. Let's go to that. I'm going to open up DSS view and let's go look at that file. It was called pumpkin spice. And there's the data. And it brought it into DSS.
Yeah, so I think, oh, sorry.
What are the ramifications of not closing the DSS? Bad.
You can get a lock on your file, which would let other programs be able to access it and open it up. That's something that might happen if it's not closed correctly. There's a chance that any data that you saved into it might not be fully saved. You know, a lot of the things are like maybes, like your computer does a lot of other work in the back end that like might, you know, close a file even without you, you know, running the close command. But, you know, it's always best just to run close to, like, you know, have the assurance
Let's do it.
that it is actually
Let's do it
saved.
without closing it. How's that sound? Here we go.
Yeah.
So I didn't close it. I'm gonna try to see what happens. I'm pretty sure it's gonna give me trouble. No, it didn't. We got lucky. It's still opened.
And so Karl showed, you know, it's just a great example of using, you know, what Eric taught us yesterday of getting data from swims using swims Python, which we then, you know, took that JSON, and, took out all of the important parts and reformatted it into our DSSpy formatting and put it into our regular time series object, which we then simply put into a DSS file using our put command. And, it might look like a lot, but, really it was just two functions that are being called in this main, set of code here. And our goal is to make it, as simple as possible for everyone, we're just calling swims Python. Okay, which then after we, augment our data in whichever way we want this to be very customizable, we can put this into a DSS object and then store back to DSS. And all these files, are available to everyone to go look back and really dig into the meat of what's actually going on.
Except for Pumpkin Spice, you have to make your own Pumpkin Spice DSS file.
I asked a similar question yesterday. Is there a limit to the size of the object you can insert into a DSS file? Are you pulling records from the cloud?
I don't think so.
Oh, from the cloud? I think they're
Like you pull your chunk and then you're trying
Yeah.
to write it to DSS. Is there a?
just whatever memory your machine
Yeah, I
has.
think
Yeah.
it's the RAM of your machine. It's the only-
Yeah.
I see R in front of the file name, so you're telling DSS file name is read this DSS file name. Can you generate
That-
files with?
So this R is actually, that R is an escape character, or maybe like, you have the right term for that. Anyhow, it means that we can, because normally all these backslashes are like, it means something special, backslash.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
to deal
Okay,
with the
so
backslash.
instead of having that be tabbed.
So the R says, hey,
Don't worry
don't,
about
just trust
it.
me, that's really a slash, yeah.
Yeah, that should be on.
It's in the PowerPoint as well. It's some of it, yeah. The key ones are in the PowerPoint.
Also, but within the GitHub file that we linked, there's readmes there. And so right now, once again, I recommend all of us, to get into groups of people and to try to, work on one of these workshops together, either go through it and try to understand what's happening, or go on and, take the challenge to try to write some of the code yourself. And me and Karl will be walking around to try to help everyone. But I think, really the only way to learn is to do. And so let's try to do it.
So again, these workshops, these two folders are two workshops. And then there's the kindergarten workshop, DSS to CSV, if you want that one. So there's three choices.
But I'm going to release everyone now to work on.
So make it to the kindergarten thing and have you count off in ones and threes, guys. Come on.
She's not working.
Thanks for bringing it up.
Oh, yeah. This is the swim is basically that. Like, instead of having to say, go through the